What's up everybody, and welcome to the channel. In today's video we're gonna do the classic 5 things I hate about my manual transmission Toyota Supra. Now before anybody takes this video way too seriously and suggests I trade this in for a minivan or something like that, here's my thought. If you're about to drop a lot of money on a car, wouldn't you like to know any and all possible downfalls with the vehicle? Now on this list of 5, some things I actually really don't like about the car. Other things, they are what they are, is what it is when you buy the car, and you'll get used to it. So really just things that could possibly deter people from buying the car, and things that I have found that are less than ideal with the manual Supra, and the Supra in general at that. So first things first is the fact that it's kind of hard to get in and out of. Now it's a 2-doored, 2-seat car. However, there are other 2-doored, 2-seaters that are just easier to get in and out of. If you are in your garage and you can only open the door one click, it is honestly a very tight squeeze. I'm 5'11", slender body type, but me trying to climb in here like this, I really have to like reach my leg in, slowly sit down, and finally get into the car. And then getting out, same sort of deal. I have to carefully stand up and kind of slide out of the car. It is a little challenging. Now, if you can open the door all the way, it is significantly better, but it's a tight car. You're also gonna notice this roof line is kind of low, and I've hit my back on this getting out a few times, and you really gotta push up from here to get yourself out. So depending on your own idea of how easy it is to enter and exit a car, the Supra is on the tight side when you're just entering it. Now with all that said, once you're in this car, it's actually very roomy, especially being the size that it is. I mean, you have plenty of headroom. I have like 4 inches of headroom, plenty of legroom, and it is a pretty open cabin. And the passenger seat actually has a ton of space. Now, along with that is visibility. Now, to me, it doesn't really bother me, but a lot of people will comment saying visibility is not the best in the Supra. So as you can see from the POV angle sitting here, you know, you have a smaller windshield. You do have pretty large mirrors. Mirror in the center does a pretty good job. Looking over your right shoulder, you know, there is a pretty decent blind spot right there. So it's just not the best. I wouldn't say it's the worst. I think it's better than a Camaro. However, over your left shoulder, I've never had an issue. And if you poke your mirrors just out a little bit, you can see that blind spot perfectly well. So personally, I don't really have an issue. I mean, I'm used to other cars like this, so to me, it's no big deal. But just keep in mind, visibility, getting in and out of, could be a little bit of a challenge. All right, so number 2 on the list, and I think every Supra owner can agree with me on this, which is wind buffeting. This is a horrible design flaw from Toyota. If you buy this car stock, keep the windows down, going 50 to 55 miles an hour, you will get the worst wind buffeting noise on the interior. The whole cabin basically vibrates, your head will vibrate. It is nearly undrivable with the windows down. It is awful. Now, I of course have a set of wind deflectors, so there's a ton of aftermarket solutions to fix that. And on our website, we carry 3 different versions of these. So at least it's super easy to fix. However, for an expensive car, something that went through so much R&D through Toyota and BMW, you would think somebody at the factory or the manufacturer would have driven this car with the windows down, especially now that we're into the 4th model year. So wind buffeting, absolutely horrible design flaw, fixable, but definitely something stupid with the car. So number 3 on the list has to do with the trunk button. The only way to open the trunk is to press your button on the key fob or open your driver door, and there is a button on the door panel right here. Now, the unfortunate thing is there's no button on the rear bumper. The BMW Z4, Nissan Z, my GTR, the BMW M2, so many other cars, there's a button right here to pop the trunk. And now here's why that really gets annoying, especially when you press this button once, trunk will pop. A lot of the time when I go ahead and close the door, the pressure inside the cabin will lift this trunk up slightly, and then it will close back down and close and lock. And then you go to grab it and it's locked, so you gotta either dig your key out again or go back inside, press the button and pop it. Right now, actually that's exactly what it did. So now I gotta go back in, open the door and do that, or of course just press the button on the key fob that's in my pocket. And while that's a nitpicky thing, it's a $60,000 car. So many times if I'm in and out of the trunk, you gotta just do so many steps. If there was a button back here, I would just come up to it, press the button, open it up and grab my things. It would make it so much easier, especially if you're walking up to the car, maybe grocery shopping or something. You know, this car has a smart key. You don't need to ever have your key in your hand. So if your key's in your pocket and you have a bunch of things, got to set your things down, dig in your pockets and find the key, press the button, and do all that. So it would be more convenient if there was a trunk button back here. And to me, that is something that I would really, really like on the Supra. All right, so moving on to number 4 on the list with things to hate about the Toyota Supra. That has to do with some of the interior buttons. So first off, for your climate control, the fan speed, you can see how many different settings there are for fan. The thing that I don't like, the first several settings honestly don't make much of a difference. When you're in the car on a hot day, on fan setting 3 or 4, you really don't feel much air. And you gotta click it so many times. And as you notice, I clicked it way more times than it moved because I'm trying to make it go as fast as possible. And look at that, it does not go as quickly as I'd hope. I'd much rather have a quick dial that I can twist, just like this, how easy that is to crank it up or not. And I wish the fan had a little bit more power down below. That's one little thing. Second thing in this category is the fact that you cannot sync the dual zone temperature. There is no way to do it. I've heard a lot of people saying just hold down the auto button. All right, let's hold down the auto button and watch nothing happen. Still holding it down, nothing. It does not sync the temperature whatsoever, which again, this is such a simple thing. Why doesn't it do that? A lot of BMWs will have a menu AC icon, which will go into a sync thing. This does not have that. So that is something that really bugs me. Next up is some steering wheel controls. Volume is a click, and then changing the track, which is really weird. So if you can see on the heads-up display, in order to change the track, I have to click that roller dial. Now we get our menu, and then I have to scroll down and click next to go to the next song. So as you can see, clicking the next song, but it takes extra steps. The only other way to do that, of course, is if you're in your Apple CarPlay. You know, you can click on the screen to change it or click over here. But in order to use the steering wheel to change radio stations or song every single time, you have to click this down and then click it to change. And this is a roller dial, and sometimes you'll click it and move your hand at the same time. I really wish this was a track next button and this was the volume, just a quick roller dial for volume. On top of all that, the manual transmission Supra does not get adaptive cruise control. That's kind of a bummer. Has normal cruise control, of course, which I think is actually an option. Kind of wish it did have that. And then another thing while we're on the interior, sometimes I notice when I go into specifically third gear, sometimes I will punch this piece. I don't know, something about the way my thumb is sometimes. If my thumb is a little bit too far forward or something, I'm going in fast, my thumb will just barely hit that. It doesn't really happen all too much into fifth gear, but I've noticed just sometimes when I'm going fast, I'll kind of hit that. So number 5 has to do with the manual transmission itself. Now I love the manual in the Supra. This is one of the most fun transmissions I've ever been in, and it makes this car so amazing. However, getting it into reverse actually takes a little bit. I didn't expect it to be that difficult. You push it over and you really have to push it over into reverse. You know, the first week or so with it, it was really stiff and I didn't quite know how to get it in. I'd put into first gear and just had to figure out, do I push it down? There's nothing to pull up. Then I realized you really have to pull it over. Obviously, it's not impossible to do, and you get used to it. Now I have 700 miles on the car, and it's gotten just a little bit easier, but still, you have to really think about putting it into reverse. It's not just a quick one. I guess the good thing, you will never accidentally put this car in reverse. If you do that, you got Hulk arms or something. But when you're going into reverse in the car, you really have to think about it. And maybe if you have elbow pain or something like that, you might want to use 2 hands. I'm not even kidding. It is a little bit challenging. Now, another thing with the manual is the first to second gear change. Obviously, it is doable. However, it is, once again, it takes a little bit to make that gear change quick. You know, you gotta kind of take it slow first and second gear with this car. And again, with 700 miles, maybe it's gotten a little bit easier to do. But I've noticed it just takes a little bit. It's hard to do it really, really quickly. So once again, we're gonna get up to speed. I would say there's just a little bit of resistance getting it into second to where, I don't know, it takes a little bit to really understand how to get it perfect. Once you're up and driving though, I mean, it is a joy. I mean, the clutch weight, the shifter feel, everything is so perfect. So it's just the slow speed things in this car that take a little bit. I'd I'd say you're just fighting a tad of resistance in the second gear, kind of like how reverses, you gotta really push it into it. Second gear, I'd say, is about half the amount of resistance, but it's a little easier in other cars, I'd say, to make that specific gear change. Once you're up and going though, rowing through the gears is a blast, and I guess at the end of the day, it makes it to where this car is a challenge in some sense. It makes you become a better driver and really, really dial in how to drive a manual. I can do a very fast first to second gear change, but you really have to pay attention. Alright, so there are 5 things I hate about my manual transmission car. There is one more thing, an honorable mention for point number 6. The horn on these cars sounds ridiculous. So take a listen. This is an expensive premium performance car, and honestly my motorcycle's horn sounds more aggressive. I haven't had to actually use the horn yet in this car, but in my last Supra I remember a few times getting cut off, beep my horn at people, and you almost want to apologize for beeping your horn because it just does not sound tough. Now I've seen a lot of people put like a Lexus horn or something from another Toyota product or something like that, and it gets a much more aggressive sounding like a normal car, but this sounds like a moped. The horn is so embarrassing to use. But anyway, those are 5 things to hate about the Toyota Supra. Overall, I do think this is one of the absolute best sports cars for the money. There's a few things about it, you know, you just kind of gotta live with. They're not the worst things in my opinion. I mean, this is the second Supra I bought, so clearly I like it. And the manual in this car is fantastic, even though there is a little bit of a learning curve. But that's what just makes this car so much better. So comment below, what do you guys think about things to hate with the Toyota Supra? If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. Stay tuned for plenty more content, and I'll see you all in the next video.